Hello and welcome to another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. I'm Luana Bradford and I'm so excited to be here. You know, I love all things business and I love when I'm able to get those cutting edge conversations when it comes to how we can shift and position ourselves with innovative and creative ideas when it comes to business. We know today within the world, there's a lot of shifts and changes. And the thing is, are you ready to reposition yourself to become relevant in an ever-changing market? Well, today I have an amazing guest, Rickey Jasper II will be joining me. And I'm so excited because entrepreneurship runs in the family. He's my cousin. But more importantly, he is a serial entrepreneur. He has been able to also master what it means to be a dualpreneur, both working in the corporate landscape as a technical professional, a technology professional, I should say. His background has been in digital technology. And as a serial entrepreneur, he has navigated a diverse landscape of interest, ranging from fitness to fitness wear, apparel. And now he is involved in barbecue. Can you believe that? But in addition, we're going to talk about something that he did. He had a very unique TV appearance. And I always like to uncover these little special sides of our entrepreneurs. So we'll dig into that. And we'll be back in just a moment with Rickey Jasper. How's it going, Rickey?
It is great. Thank you for the intro. Unbelievable.
Well, thank you for saying yes. I know your schedule's busy. We're in two different time zones. You got a baby on the way.
Yep.
A lot is happening in your world. So congratulations on that great news.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So I want to just get right into, Raw Talk. We just rip off the Band-Aid.
I love it. I love it.
I want to ask you, you were you were out east, I believe, in the Virginia area, working corporate.
Yep.
Then you left, went all the way across the nation to San Diego, and you jumped head into entrepreneurship.
Yep.
How did you get bitten by the bug? What happened?
Yeah, so entrepreneurship, I've always loved to just kind of build businesses, do things. I remember when I was younger, just doing lemonade stands, selling cookies, cutting neighbors' grass, just trying to make a quick buck by just, starting a business, starting something. So when I moved from Virginia to San Diego, I realized that the weather is beautiful all year round. I really loved fitness. So then I started, I created an online personal training company. Funny enough, I actually created that before I moved to San Diego. I was just kind of, having friends and family, use my services for free so I could, just get my chops up a little bit as I got my certification. And so once I moved to San Diego, the business took off because, it's nice all year round. People want to stay fit all year round. So I got an influx of clientele. So I loved it. And then as time went on, I left my full-time cybersecurity job. I did online personal training for about a year. And I was like, I really like the branding aspect of fitness. And, I would send my clients, branded hats, branded shirts. And I was like, I want to get into this more. And I was really inspired by Nike. There was another company called Built Apparel, which was I think they were a California-based apparel company. And I had a few of their shirts. And I was like, I want to make something custom, cut and sew, and I want to figure it out from scratch. I don't want to go to a print shop. I want to have everything cut and sew. So then I went to a print shop and I said, hey, if I want to do this myself, what do I do? And this guy gave me a website. He's like, you can call. These are all of the places in the LA fashion district. You're just going to have to make a list and you're just going to use this list and call. And so one day I just made calls and was like, hey, this is what I want to do. They're like, sorry, like we're a thread shop. Sorry. And then I got on a call with this one guy and I went down, I met him and he was like, your quantities are going to be a little too small. I'll reach out to somebody named Savannah. And she was our pattern maker designer for the 5 years that I did 413 Apparel. 413 Health and Fitness was my online personal training company, then did 413 Apparel. And so that kind of sparked everything. I always have to be in doing something, product, service. So that's just kind of I guess the short of the long of it, even though I probably took a few minutes to kind of explain the from Virginia to San Diego aspect.
No, I love that. I love the journey because there's a couple things that you said that I want to dig a little deeper. So you said that you started it online and you moved to San Diego prior to the shutdown with the pandemic. So
Yes.
It sounds like you were already positioned. You didn't know that this was going to happen, but you were positioned to take advantage of everyone being at home, right?
Yeah. So a few key things happened that probably most people won't know. During the pandemic, that is actually when we blew up in a good way. So we were in year 3, and so 413 Apparel ran it for about 5 years. We were in year 3, and we had a launch day where we did more revenue in, I believe it was 30 minutes than we had done in the previous 2 years prior, or the previous year or 2 years prior. But
wait, back up. You said you did more in 30
I think it was in about 30 minutes or so
than the whole
year previous, like sold out everything in 30 minutes. But the interesting story behind it is 413 Apparel it ended up being a primarily women's fitness apparel company. I started it to become a men's apparel company, and we started with a men's tank top, but a lot of women started buying it. And so when women started buying it, I was like, okay, let me make a crop top. Well, that sold out very quickly. And then as things grew, it was like, oh, this is a 90% women's apparel company. Now in the pandemic, as you know, a few different things happened. George Floyd happened, all of that. And most people didn't know that we were a Black-owned company. I ran the business. Corey Gray, he was our media director. My brother handled a lot of the operations as well. And so it's 3 Black men that ran the company. But every time we did, product shoots and all of our photo shoots and all of our content were all of women, right? Of all shapes and sizes and creeds and races. So people didn't know. But when that happened, I was like, I think that we should tell people who we are, because I had a big insecurity. I was like, the minute somebody realizes that men run this company, like our sales are going to plummet. But it's like we put a lot of time, attention. We had a full slate of athletes who were all women's athletes, who all of our samples we sent out to them. We got the critiques, we got the feedback before we ever produced a product and launched it, by launch. So I put up this video, and it was very much just us coming out and saying, hey, we're a Black-owned company by 3 Black men. We love doing this because we love fitness apparel. This is a lane that we never thought that we'd be in, but here we are. And it was an overwhelming amount of support. Everything that we had on our site, once we sent that, probably half of our stock on our site sold that day. And then we had a launch plan 4 weeks later, and people were like, have you all heard of this brand? 413 Apparel, which was stood for Philippians 4 and 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's a Christian-based brand, minority-owned brand, and then all of a sudden it's very high-quality fitness apparel, because we made sure that all of our materials were the exact same grade, feel as Nike and Lululemon, because in the fashion district they have all of the things, right? So we invested a lot of money into that, and people knew our quality, and people were like shouting our praises, and that's when there was this buzz, kind of a fever pitch for 2 weeks as we were prepping for launch. And then when launch hit, we sold out so fast on certain items that all of our phones started blowing up probably 4 minutes in, being like, everything is sold out. Like, we are completely sold out. So then we had to open up a pre-order, and that just took our brand, took our business to another level.
One of the things that you may not know about me, even though we're family, is we have something in common. So you had a fitness company with a fitness apparel. I had a licensed sporting apparel company. That was my very first business.
That's awesome.
And so we didn't design our clothes as you did, but we actually flew to Korea to do a lot of our buying. But
100%.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. And runs the family then.
Yes. And one of the things that I'm curious about, I love how you said you went in thinking you were going to be focused on men being your primary borrower.
Yes.
But then it shifted. So many times individuals continue to press in one direction and ignore where the industry is really going, their market is really going. What made you say, you know what, we're going to change. We're going to continue to do what we're doing. And I don't want to call it pivoting. because you were still in the fitness apparel lane, but you really wanted to serve the other side of your clientele rather than being solely a male focused apparel company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think to your point, exactly. It's like, it's really understanding where the industry is and what the needs are. And what I realized was when we dropped that first tank, the men bought it, but women, I was like, oh, at this time, I was like, I feel like more women do online shopping than men. I don't know if there was a statistic about that, but just my observation and just seeing how the business went. And then I realized something about women's apparel. I was like, we can get more creative and it can be more fun, because for men, it's like, okay, we have a tank, we have a t-shirt, and we have some shorts. That's about it when it comes to, you might throw a hoodie on us, right? But for women's apparel, things can be so creative. So I was like, oh, this is also fun because we can go through different launches, different seasons can have, different looks and feels and colors and vibes and materials. And so that's something that I was like, oh, this is going to get really, really fun, because I felt like the brand could be more dynamic. And I realized that there's a lot of men's apparel companies out there, but the more that I looked at primarily men's apparel companies, everything was about the same. And I got this really good bit of advice. Actually, my entrepreneurship journey didn't start just with this. So when I was in college, I became obsessed with Pinterest because Pinterest had just came out. I saw a lot of women using Pinterest, and I was like, I want to create a men's Pinterest. So myself, a developer, a friend of mine, and another buddy of mine who went to Virginia Tech, we were like, let's create a men's Pinterest. And we called it Mustache. It's like so good you mustache it, and so you could stash it instead of pin it. So we bought like a proprietary script, and then we coded on top of it to make it that. And so when we were going and pitching our ideas, and after we got it developed, and after we were just getting some really good industry advice, one of the people in the room that we had pitched to, some different investors and everything, he had said, the best thing that you all can do when it comes to competition is not compete. And so he's like, right now, he's like, you all are trying to make a carbon copy of something that's out there. And so that stuck with me, especially when I was doing 413. I was like, oh, let's just try something where we're not competing. Our ethos is different. We're a Christian apparel brand. Like, let's double down on that. Okay, when it comes to the colors and everything, yes, we take inspiration from Nike and Lulu and Adidas, but let's do things differently. So that's just kind of always been my thought process of when I think of something. I'm like, okay, things are out there, but I don't want to lose my authenticity because I'm trying to be something or trying to make something that's already out there.
Right. No, that's huge what you're saying. And one of the things that I teach, I have an R3 system, and the second, it's refocus, reframe, and reconnect. And the reframe, it actually comes from MLK, who challenges us with what is your life's blueprint, realizing that we're all architects in our life. And in business, you design your own lane. You don't have to be anyone else. And when you realize that you design that lane, you're not competing with anyone because it's your lane, right?
100%.
I love that. So you still did your fitness training, correct?
Yep, did.
With the apparel. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned you did it for 5 years and then decided, I'm done. Did you sell it? What happened?
Yeah, so what we did was so that was in April of 2022 was when we did our last launch. And it was partly because my now wife and I were planning on moving to Texas, right? So we were like, okay, this life shift, we're planning on moving to Texas. It had grown, and I was just at a point where I was like, okay, I have different interests. I want a different phase of life. So what we did was we just did a final sale of things, and we sold off, just about everything, and shut down shop and everything. And that was very tough for me, because when we did that, we didn't tell people it was a final sale, because, and I'd say part of the reason why I actually wore this shirt today is because I really was like, oh, I want to get back into men's apparel. Like, I want to get back into something of who I am. And I love, athletics, and I love, high performance wear. And because our brand was so female focused, I was like, there's some men's thing that I want to do. So this is, I pseudo created a brand called Agility. And so I just had, a sample made of a shirt and stuff like that. And so this is, the Agility brand that I was like kind of toying over for a little bit. But then I was like, you know what? Making products and making apparel, although it was great, it was highly stressful, I'm sure, as you know. And so I was like, you know what? I want to take a break for a second, move to Texas and kind of see where life takes us. And that's where we're at right now.
I love that. We're going to be back in a moment, and we're going to get to the next section of this interview where we're going to talk about from the grind to the growth.
Business and Financial Raw Talk, a no-holds-barred forum for leaders and innovators with award-winning business strategist and financial analyst Lawana Bradford with the Bradford Group. With Raw Talk, we are empowering women to rise and succeed in business and finances and improve the world for the next generation. Get ready to get raw and real. Live each Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.
All right, we're back with Rickey Jasper II, and he is a serial entrepreneur and just a creative mind, innovative. And as we were talking about him living his passion, we talked about fashion, we talked about fitness, his inspiration for a new brand called Agility, men's brand. And I want to talk about this piece, from grind to growth. So we talked about all the highs.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the lows. What was the most challenging thing for you once you decided that you were going to move into women's fitness apparel?
It was the thing that actually was the reason why I got so excited for it. It was because everything could be so different, but I realized that meant everything was faster paced. You had to have launches every 3 months, which means that you needed to make sure that revenue was high so that you could fund the next few launches and everything. And so that was a little bit stressful. And the other thing, which was really cool, but I realized later it was tough. We got a lot of great opportunities. And so one of the best opportunities we had was early on, I was a sponsored athlete by bodybuilding.com. And so bodybuilding.com had the biggest booth at the Olympia, which is, big, fitness competition, everything, right? And they had asked 413, they said, hey, do you all mind making the apparel for all of the athletes to wear at the Olympia? And this was in 2018, I believe. And I was so honored because I was like, that's a huge deal because it's the biggest booth. Usually they're wearing bodybuilding.com branded stuff. Right. They would give us all the stuff. And so we came up, we had a co-branded idea, sent it over to them, got approval, made everything. Now, I believe it was 4 or 5 days before the Olympia, all the men's stuff, good to go. The women's stuff, the logos came out the wrong color and they were in the wrong placement. And I went to LA to pick them up and I was like, oh, this is horrible. So Savannah, our designer, she was on it. She made sure everything, and again, everything's cut and sew, had to recut. So these are specific to the size of the athletes that are going to be there. I called up bodybuilding.com and I said, hey, these aren't getting shipped out, but I'm bringing them with me. So I had all of the athletes stuff with me. But that's just kind of like a short anecdote about just things that are I had some great opportunities, but some downs and some lows and some growth experience happened where I was like, oh, these are close calls. And when you're in a growing stage and when you're in a startup phase, anything that seems like it's such a great opportunity where you have to give a little bit of extra, it's weird because if you have something that goes wrong, it feels like everything could be done in a moment. Right. And so that's something where I had to deal with, where it's reframe those situations and then also come up with creative solutions that, hey, if things didn't go perfectly, we had to have workarounds. That taught me that in the future, have workarounds just in case.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually kind of nerve-wracking because fortunately you were cut and sew and everything was domestic. Can you imagine if you were if it were international shipment?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I can't. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the name of your company, and I want to just salute you for being authentic to who you are. I find when I'm speaking to a lot of small businesses, there's a fear of being authentic. It's like, let me hide behind this image. Have someone else be the face, because like you said in the beginning, what if they know that this is a shop being run by Black men, by Christian Black men? Mm-hmm. How were you able to break away from that? Say, it's okay, I'm going to feel the fear and I'm going to do it anyway. This is me.
Yeah, I had just gotten to a point where over so many years of doing different things, right? Of, creating Mustached with a group of friends. And I would always be blogging. I had a blog called The Left Lane Project that got picked up by a lot of big, other blog sites, the thought catalogs and so forth. And over time, seeing criticism about the things that I would write, seeing criticism about even some of the items that, came out, or, even early on, before we had a customer service manager, I was the one managing all the customer service. So any issues, I would see all that. Anytime we had a launch, I would see all the things in the exchanges, and people don't know sometimes when they're sending a nasty email, like because a thread was, it ripped or something like that. Like, I'm intaking all of that. And I got to the point where I just kind of became a little bit callous to some of the negativity, which is a good thing in entrepreneurship, because if you're going to grow something, if something's going to grow, not everybody's going to like it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it be. And it is what it is, because if we're trying to grow and we're trying to put things out there, we are not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. And the minute I understood that, I became very free to do things. That's why even with like Rickey L barbecue, people think it's like, oh, where did this come from? I'm like, I'm doing what I love, and it's going to be off the wall to somebody, but I'm just like, I'm enjoying it and I like it. So if I like it, I'm enjoying it, and nobody's getting hurt, I'm cool.
Now, speaking on doing what you love, do you think that is the secret to success as an entrepreneur, that it should always be something that you love?
Yeah, I think it has to start that way. The reason being is because when you start with passion, that leads you in the right direction, because as things grow and as you really double down and get into the weeds of it, and as things, like I said, as things grow, there's stressful things that happen. And so it's just like anything else. It's like a relationship, like a marriage, right? You love the person, everything. As you grow a family, as you grow and you do things and everything, it's like there's going to be challenging times where you're not going to love what's happening in the moment, but the overall love has to be there so that you can continue to progress. And I think for me, what has really, really helped is I have led with the things that I'm passionate about. And so when I do that, I'm authentic in what I'm putting out there. I'm never doing anything to make a quick buck, because you know how it is when it comes to apparel. It's like, you're not doing that to make a quick buck. That's a lot of work, right? It's so I'm always doing something where if I wasn't ever going to get paid for it, I would be doing it anyway. That's how the apparel started. That's how the blog started. I always liked writing. I still, to this day, I still have my journal, my prayer journal, my writing, all of this is right in my desk and everything. And then when it comes to, my now barbecue company, I was mixing seasonings and trying to make it as soon as I started loving smoking meats and everything. So it's things that you start out loving that progress. And as you grow and get in the business, like, you'll figure out some of the, highs and lows of it.
Oh, I love that. And when you were talking, it reminded me of one of the greatest advice that my dad gave me. He said, find something in life that you love so much you would be willing to do it for free, and you'll never work in a day in your life.
100%. Right?
Because that's what wakes you up or keeps you up at night.
Yes. Yeah. No, it absolutely does.
Yeah. So let's talk about this barbecue.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
So you got to help me to understand the transition. Like you said, it's something that you love doing.
Yeah.
So I guess you have some culinary talents that we don't know about.
Yeah, crazy. So as you know, food and love and all that stuff runs in the family. And I think, seeing it from my, late grandmother, Granny Gloria, always going down in Emerson, Arkansas. She'd always make big meals. My mom making big meals and everything. My wife is a phenomenal cook. And it's funny. I thought that it started in Texas, and it didn't. And it was like a time hop thing that either popped up on Facebook. But for my 30th birthday, I'm 34 now. For my 30th birthday, when I lived out in San Diego, my wife got me like an electric grill for outside of my patio. And I would be on that thing all the time. And I forgot. I was like, oh, I love grilling all the time. And so we had went to a cookout in San Diego. A buddy of mine brought some chicken, and I was like, this tastes phenomenal. I was like, yeah, I have a smoker. And I was like, I have to get a smoker. So when we were in Texas, the first thing my wife got me was a smoker. So I was like, oh, this is great. So I'm always out on the smoker our pantry cupboard. It has like a full section for all of my seasonings, rubs, everything. Like she always gifting me with a bunch of that stuff. Every time we go to the grocery store, I'm getting a new seasoning and rub. And so I just loved it. And that's how that love for smoky meats and everything started. But the barbecue company started actually from syrup. So we went to a farmer's market one day, and this guy was like, oh, he had all these different syrups. And he was like, oh man, I have this whiskey syrup for you to try. And I was like, cool, I'll try it. And so he was giving out samples, but he didn't have a sample of the whiskey syrup, but he just handed us a bottle and he was like, oh, it'll be $20. So I was like, well, great. Might as well try it. So we got home, tried it. And I was like, oh, this is phenomenal. I have to figure out how to make this, and I want to make it better. And so a week or two later, I was testing some different recipes, and I made one recipe, and Carly, my wife, tried it, and she was like, oh, this is it. And so this was probably May of last year. So I just started making it and bottling it at home. So when people came by.
Let me just help the audience understand. So when you're saying syrup, you're talking about like regular syrup that you use on pancakes or.
Yep,
right?
Yep. Regular syrup you can use on pancakes. I always say you put like a teaspoon in a shot of espresso. You get like a little bit of sweetness to it, that type of stuff. Regular syrup. So so we people loved it. People started coming over. We like to host a lot, and so I would always just end up just giving that as like a parting gift type of thing. And then it was over the Christmas break. I told Carly, I was like, man, so many people who've gotten it have said, hey, when you start selling this, I'm going to buy a few bottles. And so I was like, I have some time. Let me just put up a website and figure this thing out. And so dropped the first launch, sold out within a few hours. Then I think a week or two later, did it again, sold out within a few hours. At the same time, I was working on trying to create a seasoning that I really liked. Once I found it, I was like, okay, we're just going to go all in. We're going to make different seasonings and so on and so forth. And so we just dropped our first seasoning, last Sunday? So when you're seeing this, it might be a few weeks ago, but yeah, so here we are.
I love that. And it's interesting that you had something that you could buy and that you enjoyed, but you thought, how could I make it better?
Yeah, exactly.
How can I make it better? Make it my own.
Yep.
Now, this is a question that I have for you, because I'm always curious when you're making things in a non-commercial framework. So
Yep.
you're not shipping it off. How do you ensure the consistency in the taste?
Yeah, absolutely. So I make sure I measure everything exactly how it's supposed to be measured. And then also I'm big on temperatures. The one thing about smoking meats is, you can set it and forget it, but you always make sure it gets up to temp. And so there's a specific temperature that the syrup has to get to for a certain amount of time, and then bring it down to a boil for a certain amount of time, then cut it off, checking temperatures along the way. And so that's the easiest way for me to keep consistency. And then also when it comes to consistency in bottling, I'm always making sure that, I'm measuring the exact weight for everything. And that's with the seasoning, that's with the syrup as well.
Because this is dealing with the food side of the house, is there certain licensing and permitting that you need to have for that?
Yeah, so I actually looked this up, and I don't have it on top of my head, but I actually looked all of that up. And so in Texas, you can make syrups, rubs out of your home and ship out without any sort of FDA approval or anything like that. There's something that's there. But what I do specifically to make sure everything is good to go, gloves and masks when I do everything, make sure that there's a clean space, and then as soon as things are cool, bottle quickly and get things good to go. So I try to keep it as clean as possible, but no, there's something in Texas where it's like, hey, you're okay, you're good to go, just like if you were selling at a farmer's market or something like that.
So with the bottling, is it the same as if you were canning, how you have to boil the containers first?
So not entirely sure how they do with the canning, but yeah, we make sure that the bottles are clean before we wash the bottles out and everything. So everything is good to go. Not partially, it's because anytime we get the bottles, and we saw this with our glass bottles early on, we would get them, and you know how it is, like if you get a big shipment of everything, some things are dusty, some things don't look good or whatever. So it's like, you have to do this absolutely anyway. And then now, since we switched from a glass bottle to a plastic bottle, the nice thing is the supplier that we get it from, it's already sealed, packaged, and all of that before. So they do a great job of it. We make sure it's washed out and everything is clean before distribution.
Okay, now since you said you use plastic, I'm gonna be the devil's advocate.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
No more wire hangers.
So I'll tell you why. So before, when we did the first 2 batches of the glass bottles, what was happening was in the shipping, even though we box it and everything, and when we let it cool to a point, once we bottled it and put the top on, some people had like a little bit of leakage, and it was from some of the pressure. And so with plastic, it allows it to flex a little bit so that there's, especially in shipments and any sort of high pressure situation, it has a little bit of flex, so that we didn't want to change it. But then we were like, hey, I didn't want for every, 20 bottles that are sent out, one person sending an email saying, hey, mine's broken. And then me sending them another one and being like, I hope that it gets there okay. So that's just the only reason.
I have a question, and this is to just educate individuals that are out there that are, conscious about the planet. With your plastics, how did you select? Do you select BPA-free plastics? What do you do?
Yeah, I'll just be very frank. It wasn't necessarily in my selection process. It's something where it's like, okay, I'm getting learned up and everything on. For me, it was really about the user experience when it comes to what they're receiving and ensuring that it gets there correctly. And so that's something where, again, and this is just like, I'd say an entrepreneurship lesson that anybody watching is, your first product and your second product might not be your final product, because there's things that you learn along the way. And so for me, even us having this conversation, I'm like, okay, let me look into that, because there could be a switch that's made. And even when I switched the plastic bottles and I told, people who follow me and everything, I was like, hey, this is what we have now. This might not be the final product. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about business, is because as you grow and as you change, it's like you grow and then the brand grows and things changes. But if you're so beholden to, this is how it has to be, and it has to look this way, and it has to whatever, and then when people get it, and if they have that expectation, then when you change something, they fall off. But if it's like, hey, this is what we're doing now, and we'll figure and learn and adjust on the way, and if they see the story as you go along, they trust that you're willing to be flexible and adjust and change as you learn more.
No, I like that. And there's a company here in Atlanta, and they're local, and they sell different juices. And what I love about them is theirs is in plastic, but they actually have a pickup. So for their routine customers, when they drop off your next order, they have you leave the others at the door. So then they're using it as a way to recycle. So just a creative way to say, hey, we're still being conscious, but plastic makes sense for us.
Hey, look, if we get big enough in the DFW area, we might have that.
I love that. Well, we'll be back in a moment with Rickey Jasper as we continue our talk about the grind and the growth, real talk. In the high stakes world of business and sports, time isn't just ticking, it's explosive. Where the elite forge their path, where champions and visionaries aren't just participating, they are leading. Welcome to the R3 system, your exclusive strategy in a world where the only constant is change. Refocus with clarity. Reframe with innovation. Reconnect to lead. R3 isn't just a plan, it's a revolution in strategy. This is the domain of achievers, on the field, in the marketplace, at the forefront of progress. With over 30 years of award-winning expertise in fields from defense, sports, finance, the Bradford Group knows victory. Their winning attitude and team power aren't just concepts. They are your strategic advantage. It is your time to stand out, to lead, to redefine success, make the decisive move, contact the Bradford Group, and embark on a journey that sets you apart. Don't just meet the future, shape it with the R3 system. Act now, your legacy awaits.
If you're looking to start a new business, I'm going to give you 4 things right now that you should absolutely do to start the business, right? The reason I say this is because I've started businesses before. I've had successful businesses. I've had businesses that have failed miserably, but I've learned so much in the process. And I am also in the midst of starting yet growing another business in a industry that I thought that would never happen. So if you all like these videos, can you do me a favor? I'm trying to grow this channel. Like, comment, subscribe. I would love to interact with you, but we are going to grow this because it's the Real Growth Playbook, and we're just going to grow together. So how do we start a business? And I'm not just going to give you kind of the, boring textbook tactics and stuff like that. I'm just going to give you straight up the things that I have seen that have worked the best. Number 1 is actually be passionate about it. I see too many people and too many things that happen on social media where people see a trend and they jump on it and they build a business and they wonder why it's not sustainable. It's because they don't care about the actual business. They don't care about the people. They just care about, the money that's involved. And I see it so much in the fitness industry. And it's, people who are like, oh, I'm going to have a business that I don't really care about my clients, but I'm going to teach you how to get clients. And then that person ends up coaching people, and then they coach people. And it's just like this weird MLM scheme. And it's like, but nobody necessarily cares. I'm not saying nobody, I'm just not going to generalize, but there's not the care and the time and attention to how to actually serve the clients from that aspect. And I'm just using that as an example. So you have to make sure that your passion is there. And before I even jump into everything else, so I used to run a fitness apparel company that actually ended up being a 90% women's apparel company. That was not the intention, but women saw the first tank that was I created, and they were like, oh, this must be a unisex tank, and they bought it like crazy. And it just exploded, right? From, I believe, 2017 to 2022. And I was super passionate about it for some time. And then when 2022 hit, I realized I'm not as passionate about it. And it's because it didn't encompass who I was. And I was like, I will never be a woman. I am building women's apparel with the help of my team, with the help of my then girlfriend, now wife. And I'm like, I don't know how it feels in this stuff. And so yes, we can grow, but it's like, but I need to be able to be passionate about it, to wear the things, so that I am not only a walking billboard of it, I'm an advocate for it, right? So that's why I say being passionate about something is going to be helpful, because you embody what it is. And when people talk to you, they'll see your true passion about it. The second thing is have a loose plan. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something that I'm going through right now, right? So if you've been following me on Instagram, you will see that I have started a barbecue company. I live in Texas. I've been here for 2 years. I've been smoking meats and everything for 2 years. Probably early midway through 2024, I really started liking whiskey syrup. I went to a farmer's market. This person was selling whiskey syrup, and I was like, I got to figure out how to make this. So I started making this for friends and family. This is a Rick Lane barbecue whiskey syrup. Now, people started loving it. They were like, you need to sell it. So it was probably December timeframe. I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I'm just going to start doing small batches. So I started doing that. I've had some sales, some batches that went out and everything. Also working on a new rub, which is going to be so good. It is great, but you'll see all this coming soon. But I digress, getting back to it. Now, after the second batch went out, I realized, well, some people's were, when they got it, the lid was slightly off, and, we vacuum seal it, plastic seal it, everything, but it was because of the pressure, and it's a pressure in the glass bottle. Glass doesn't have anything, can't mold, can't go anywhere. So the only way to go is out, or the bottle to break. So we had a small percentage of where that happened. And I was like, well, that can't happen because as things grow, I don't want there to be a percentage of people who get it. And they're like, oh, I'm kind of frustrated that I spent this money and I'm not getting, what I paid for. And now I have to go through and, email customer service and get a whole new batch. So from a loose plan standpoint, we found a plastic bottle. Now, this is great because obviously, as you see, I'm hitting it. It's not breaking. We can do whatever we need to. It can ship no problem. Once we plastic seal it, it's good to go. And it also has some flex. And the reason why I say is have a loose plan is because not everything is going to go as planned when you first start the thing. And if you get frustrated because it's not perfect, then you're not going to be built out for it. And I'm speaking to myself because that was me. I was like, I'm so frustrated with this. I went through a few different glass jars. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we had to figure out a way that to make it work, and it just wasn't glass, and that's okay. And so we pivoted. We got different smaller logos, smaller nutrition facts to put on the back. This is obviously the sample of this one, so it doesn't have everything there. So we just had to pivot a little bit. And what that's going to do is that helps the customer. That helps who the end goal is to make sure that customers are happy with the product, right? So when you have a loose plan, it's going to be helpful. The other thing is a loose plan isn't just like the packaging. It could be, how your website's built, how you're going to fulfill orders, how you're going to do your service, whatever it is, just make sure that you have a plan. But if it doesn't go according to plan, don't let that stop you. The third thing is experiment with what works and what doesn't work. Experimentation is key in business, in every single business, even Fortune 500 businesses and companies. They are consistently experimenting. That's why their business model changes. That's why people change in the organization. That's why direction of the organization changes. And it's okay, because when you're experimenting, you're always in a place of learning. And I think that that's so important, is because people get into business, they're like, oh, I want to go into business and I want to be my own CEO and I want to make $1 million or whatever. But they don't realize that you have to be consistently experimenting. And sometimes that experimentation is something where it's going to seem like something flops and it's a failure. I also think what's so important, especially if you're starting something new, is show people the story of it. So when it comes to this, I was already posting about the whiskey syrup well before I started selling it, not because I ever thought that I would sell it. It's like, I'm passionate about it. And then we had the bottle problem, and it literally only happened to 3 people out of, the sales that we've had. And I was like, but you know what? I'm going to be transparent about it, because people have seen this, people have seen people repost this, and I'm going to say, hey, this bottle just isn't working out, and it started to break. So I started doing a test with this, on social media, and just dropping it and showing that, hey, it's not breaking, but we're transitioning to this, right? So experimenting with what works and what doesn't work. And again, this might not be the end or the last bottle. I might find something and I'm like, oh, I like it even better, because it works better for whatever reason. So when you experiment, and also when you experiment publicly, it just shows people that you're human, shows people that you're not perfect, that you are trying to just do your best to make the most perfect thing that you can, while knowing that it's probably not going to be 1,000% perfect. But experimentation is going to be the reason why you learn the most. And the last thing is kind of the Nike slogan, just do it. Now, this is interesting because I wrote these video notes a few days ago, and then I watched the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark, Shannon Crowder, and all of them, but it had Mel Robbins on it, and she was saying, well, Nike and their slogan, it's so important because it's just do it. And they're like, what word do you think is the most important? And Ryan Clark was like, the do part, because you have to do it. And she was like, no, it's actually the just, because what the just is saying is, hey, even though it's scary, even though you're fearful, even though you're standing on the ledge of this thing that you are about to jump, and you want to do something new and exciting, but you're kind of scared. It's like just do it. Like, you can do it. It's just this thing that you have to do, and let's not make a big deal out of it, but it's fully within your capability, and it's right there in front of you. And so when it comes to business, when it comes to anything, there's so many people that are just like, I'm going to do this one day, I'm going to do that one day. And it's like, you hear them month after month, year after year, and then there's no progress on it, but they keep talking about it. And it's like, well, you already know what to do. Just do it. Right? No matter how it turns out, a success, a failure, sometimes your successes are going to feel like failures because you're failing forward every single day. Just do it. So I hope that these kind of non-practical, I know they're very practical, but just different ways to talk about how and why to start a business, it really helped you out. Again, number 1, actually be passionate about the thing. Number 2, have a loose plan. Have a plan, but if it doesn't go according to plan, don't just ditch everything. Just have a loose plan. Number 3, experiment with what works and what doesn't work. Not everything's going to work. Number 4, very easy. Just do it. So I hope that you all like this message. If you got something from it, like, comment, share, subscribe, send it to somebody who needs to hear it. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
Okay, we are back. This has been a great conversation. There's so much more that I want to ask you, but I'm going to take it to the fun side for a little bit, because I hinted at it at the beginning. So all this amazing things that you've done in your 34 years of ingenuity and entrepreneurship, and as a dualpreneur, I hear that you were on a TV show called The Bachelor. The Bachelor, right?
The Bachelorette, but yeah,
Bachelorette,
the Bachelor franchise.
The Bachelorette, yes. You were hoping to get selected. Now I saw one episode. I think you were teaching the person to salsa. Yeah,
probably. Yep, I was par for the course.
So walk us through that. I mean, because that's a huge jump. How did you get into the TV side, and what made you interested in a show like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the year prior was Rachel Lindsay's season, and I was living in San Diego at the time. I was at my local gym. I was on the Stairmaster, I believe, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, you have the look that we want for the show The Bachelorette." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, I'd never watched the show. I mean, I probably watched clips here and there. I knew of it because it was such a huge show at the time. And so I was like, oh, do you want to be on the show? Do you want to, come to LA? And I was like, not really. And they're like, well, do you mind if we get your name and contact information and so on and so forth? So I was like, sure. And so they took a headshot of me at the gym. I'm sweaty and everything. They got my information and they kept reaching out that week. And I was like, no, I'm okay. So the following year, I had basically two things that happened. I went through a breakup a few months prior, and then I had a contract that I was working on that was ending in, I want to say it was probably like a month or two. And so I had some idle time that would have been there. So I had the contact information, say, hey, I don't know what the seasons are, but I just, kind of want to see what the opportunities are. And they're just like, hey, that's great that you reached out. Give us a call. And then I think I was in LA a few days later, kind of going through that whole long process. But the reason why I actually ended up doing it was even after I reached back out to him, I was still not sold on it. I gave my dad a call and I said, hey, here's an opportunity. Who knows where it could lead? I keep saying I'll be frank because it's real talk. So I'm going to keep it real and raw with you. I don't think that most people go on that show to find love. And I was really just like, I was like, oh, I kind of want to see what this whole thing is about. It's such a select few people in the entire world that actually go and are able to see what it's about. And so my dad was like, he's like, why would you not take this opportunity? He's like, you have, moved across the country. You've had all these cool things happen. Like you have an opportunity to, who knows where it can go. Like why would you not? And just to provide a little bit of context, I grew up when I was, I think 3 months, my parents moved to Berlin, Germany. For 3 years, my brother was born in Germany. We lived in Singapore for 3 years in my developmental years in elementary, middle school and stuff. So my parents were very much like, go do, travel, be. And so that's part of the reason why I did it. I was like, why not? And that's kind of how I am with a lot of opportunities. I'm like, we can sit, we can debate, we can think about these things and analyze it all we want. But if we jump into it, that's when we're going to figure out if it's for us, if it's not for us.
Oh, I love that story because you said you never know what going through that door is going to get you.
Yep.
And even just that exposure. I mean, you went in one way, you came out a different way.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's great. And there's so many, and I want to speak especially to, I think men do this a little bit better than women, but women can, and I'm talking about women entrepreneurs, can be very wedded to whatever it is. I'm going to keep this baby. Well, I'm going to resuscitate it. I don't care how many times it dies. Keep resuscitating it. Or a door opens and it just doesn't look how you envisioned it.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't have the same bow that you want to have on it, and you choose to not walk through that door.
Absolutely.
Can you speak to that person? Because I think as women, we can learn from each other, but we can learn from the brilliant minds that we have from men as well. So what would you say to that person who has an opportunity, but it just doesn't look how she expected it to look?
Yeah, I probably learned this I'm going to take a different approach. I learned this in dating and being married to my now wife. So when I was in San Diego, I was just kind of dating around, I was out there. And then when I met Carly or re-met Carly, kind of long story short, when I first moved to San Diego, she worked in the same building and she was the first girl that I ever talked to in person. And then I ended up getting her number on the elevator. Then we didn't see each other for 3 years. Crazy story. And so when we got back in contact, I had a lot of anxiety getting into the relationship. And it was partially because what I was doing before for 5 years in San Diego or for 4 years in San Diego was I was just kind of, dating and nothing was serious. So what I had to do was when I committed to something new, I had to be okay with, hey, learning and growing in the process. And I think it's two different things, right? You can commit to having a goal and you can commit to an entrepreneurship venture. But when you're in it, after you committed to it, that's great. But when you're in it, not being wed to what it's going to look like. Allow yourself to grow, allow it to be, allow things to shift and move. And if you can do that, you'll be able to, one, it de-stresses you. And then two, you're able to see, oh, this is what I like, this is what I didn't like. And then things are able to grow that much more. And I realized that from a relationship marriage standpoint was when I committed to that, I was like, oh, I I was scared because I was like, oh, I don't know how it is to be in a committed relationship. And then now I'm in something and I'm like, oh, this is the best thing. I can grow into so many different things that I didn't know, and I can allow myself to be and flourish in that environment. So not being so wed to, what you might think the outcome should look like, because you don't know who you're going to be as the process goes on.
I love that. Well, we are, believe it or not, almost out of time. I can't believe it went so fast. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to share whatever it is that you like with our audience. Okay?
Man, giving me 3 minutes of unstructured time. First off, thank you all so much for watching this. It's been such an awesome and raw talk with Luana. I would say follow your passions and do it unapologetically, and do it with a lot of fire and with a lot of vigor, because if you're not putting forth the maximum amount of effort into what you're trying to get to, you don't get the fullness of the output, right? And anything that I've done, I put everything in it, so I could at least say, even if it didn't work because not for a lack of effort, right? So putting your best foot forward, stay as positive as you can in the process. I know that some days you just have those days, but if you can stay grounded, you can stay positive, a lot of great things can happen on the other side. And the last thing that I'll say is get the right people around you. There was a period of time where I didn't have the right people in my ear. It wasn't the right people around me. And I didn't realize how much of a toll that was taking on me until I started to have the right people around me, the right friends, the right partner, the right, family in my ear. So, and it helped skyrocket me to a completely different level. So that's a kind of a take of, who you're dating, who your circle is, who your network is, all that stuff. Make sure that you audit those people, because those are going to be the people that are going to speak so much life into some of the things that you have a lot of vulnerability and anxiety with that you really want to do. So I would say, do that. That's just about it for me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us on another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. We look forward to seeing more about how you're going to be adding to the Rickey Lane Barbecue.
Rick Lane Barbecue.
Rick Lane Barbecue. Let me get that right. The Rick Lane Barbecue. You've got your rub. And so this is really exciting. I wish you well. And to our listening audience, thank you so very much for joining us again for another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. And just remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next week, bye everyone.